Now we're going to look at literal equations, this time formulas. Now formulas usually have less numbers in there, more variables, um, but we can still solve these problems the same way as any other ones. This first one here is a formula for circumference. I need to get r alone. Now let's take a look at everything we have next to that r. We got 2, we have pi. Both, both of those numbers, well, all three of them are being smashed together. They're all next to each other. When they're next to each other and they don't show an operation, multiplication. So these three numbers are being multiplied to each other. What's the inverse of multiplication? Division. So I want to divide by what needs to move. R staying put, so it's going to be everything but that. If I divide by 2, my 2's cancel. If I divide by pi, I can just leave it as the symbol and they disappear. I don't need to change it. Now, if I do it to the right side, got to do it to the left. I'm going to divide by the same thing. Now, start easy. Worry about getting away from the variable. Forget about how ugly the answer is going to look. Well, let's just rewrite and see what we have. All right, I just don't like the r at the end. Let's switch the order. R equals c over 2 pi. And leave it as a symbol pi. We don't need to change it to 3.14 or anything like that. That does enough damage for us. Okay, now what does this even say? Well, this is a formula for acceleration when you're talking about different velocities or different speeds. This means your final velocity or final speed. This is your initial velocity or your initial speed, what you start with. And t time, does that even matter? No, but it does if we know what we're going to solve for. We're going to solve for, let's solve for the initial velocity. So in order to get the initial velocity alone, that v little I alone, I gotta figure out my movements. Well, this fraction line creates a top and a bottom. It creates a numerator and a denominator. Now, when you have a fraction, it's kind of like a parenthesis. It's like grouping symbols. This top number, both of these are grouped together. I can't get to them yet. I got to break that group by moving the t first. So there's division here. I'm going to multiply. And I'm going to say t over 1. Why? Well, just because this is on the bottom of the fraction, I want to showcase that that's on the top of the fraction. And when that does happen, they cancel out with each other. If I do it to one side, got to do it to the other. So I multiply that side by t. And all I'm left with, and it doesn't matter which order you do this, you could just say a times t. And I'm left with my two v's on the right side. Okay, I need to get vi alone. Well, what's stopping me? This. I have to move my vf. Well, is this vf positive? We know that they're being subtracted to each other, so we have to add or subtract to move it. Now, is this positive or negative? Since there's no sign, we know it's positive, so that means I have to subtract the vf. I'm going to subtract the vf over here. Now again, we have a subtraction problem going up and down that's really ugly looking. I don't care. I'm just going to move them side by side. At minus v little f equals, don't forget the negative, we didn't touch it, negative v sub I. I need to get vi alone. Now, if I were to read this, it says negative vi. Vi is not alone. I have to still move that negative. So what I can do is there's a few different options here. I could just divide by a negative. I could multiply everything by a negative. Just multiply the whole problem by a negative. That'll still kind of handle the situation. Negative and negative cancel out. You're left with v little I. On the other side, if I do the same thing, if I multiply everything by a negative, this now becomes a negative. This now becomes a positive. Now, how did I do that? I distributed. We don't like this order, so let's switch it. v little I equals. Now you could switch these around. You could leave them the way it is, but I'll leave it for right now. There's a little more we can do later on. And that's solving literal equations with formulas.